This block provides you with an approachable introduction to the diversity of the trampoline. What are the differences between the individual pieces of equipment? Which trampoline is the right one for me? The most common large models for school sports are the Master Trampoline and the Grandmaster Trampoline. A Master Trampoline has the following measurements. The frame is 4.57 meters long, 2.75 meters wide, and 99 centimeters high when assembled. The trampoline bed measures 3.66 meters by 1.83 meters. A Grandmaster Trampoline, on the other hand, has the following measurements. Frame 5.2 meters long, 3.05 meters wide, and 1.08 meters high. The trampoline bed is about 4.26 meters long and 2.13 meters wide. This produces a distinct difference in size. For group exercises and more challenging jumps, the Grandmaster Trampoline is the right choice and also offers greater safety with its larger surface area. For competition, the Eurotramp models currently in use are the Grandmaster Exclusive and the Premium models, with the same jumping bed measurements as the Grandmaster, but with a frame 1.15 meters tall, somewhat higher, so that higher performance jumping beds can be utilized. Anyone wanting to know more about equipment norms for competition apparatus should visit the International Gymnastics Federation website, www.fig-gymnastics.com. The capabilities and propulsion performance of the trampolines depends on the type of jumping bed. As a rule, the more air-permeable a jumping bed is, the greater its performance potential. This is why there are various types of weave. A jumping bed is made up of bands of varying widths, which are, as a rule, manufactured by industrial sewing machines. This is how the most common varieties look. The 45mm jumping bed has the lowest propulsion capability, but it's nevertheless extremely robust with optimal stability and a nice soft surface. Inexpensive jumping beds are made with ready-made fabric off the roll. These bed varieties offer balanced jump possibilities, but it should be noted that unlike the beds made of bands, if this kind of bed is damaged, it cannot be repaired. For usage in schools, the bed sewn from 13mm wide bands has proved its worth because it offers a good balance between performance and controllability. It's also extremely durable. For competition, beds are currently being utilized made of thin bands with a width of up to 4mm. These have, however, been developed for competitive sport and are not suitable for use in schools. A trampoline occupies a large space when it's erected and is generally folded for storage and transport and put on transport units. There are several variants at disposal for this purpose. The cheapest type of transport for a trampoline is the roller stand. The problem with it is that all apparatus types of Grandmaster, when folded together, are 2.2 meters in height, whereas many doors in gymnasiums are only 2 meters in height. With the conventional lifting roller stand and the safe and comfort lifting roller stand, the trampoline can be lowered from 2.2 meters to 1.97 meters. Therefore, all large trampolines fit through standard doors, 2 meters in height, without problems. In order to significantly increase safety and ease of handling, we offer a novel revolutionary hydraulic pump system with which the trampoline can be raised and lowered again very easily. The new lifting roller stand, safe and comfort. All criteria at a glance. Roller stand. Lowering is not possible, hence the trampoline cannot pass through 2-meter-high doors and garages. Cost effectiveness. Lifting roller stand. Lowering to 1.97 meters is possible, enabling passage through doors at room height. 2-stage raising and lowering is possible. Only suitable for experienced, trained persons. Hint: new lifting roller stand, safe and comfort. Lowering to 1.97 meters is possible, enabling passage through doors at room height. Stepless raising and lowering to the desired height is possible. Highest safety standard, easy to use, and intuitive in nature. Double mini trampoline gymnastics is a popular discipline that requires great gymnastic ability. Gymnasts jump with approach onto the apparatus to execute 2 consecutive jumps, for example twist and somersault combinations. The landing is carried out on the mats laid out behind. A trampoline track makes it possible to carry out exercises that involve decelerated motion sequences and that ensure that the gymnastic movements are easy on the joints. On trampoline tracks, it's possible to learn, improve and perfect practically all gymnastic elements, such as handsprings and all twist somersaults. The inclusion of a trampoline track in methodical training sessions for all ages and abilities is therefore highly recommended. Trampoline tracks are particularly useful for group presentations with aesthetic gymnastic elements. Trampoline tracks are available in various lengths with different jumping bed materials and tensions. Foldable solutions can also be offered. There are many accessories and training aids for trampoline use. Frame add-ons and safety mats provide an optimal safety standard for training and competition. These secure the front sides of the trampoline to avoid potential accidents in this area. In case 2 trampolines have to be placed closely together, only one frame add-on can be positioned between the trampolines. In this case, the safety mat with a double wedge is a good solution. It should, however, be noted that jumpers in the center of the trampoline only have one shared safety landing mat. Using a harness is a popular way to learn more challenging jumps. This involves the instructor securing the gymnast with a rope. The gymnast is securely attached to the harness with a somersault belt. Working with the harness requires experience on the part of the instructor, as the line must be actively controlled in harmony with the jumps. For the gymnast, the harness generates a great sense of security and therefore presents enormous potential for the development and improvement of exercises. Bungee harnesses are also very popular, as they also present even inexperienced participants with the possibility of conducting somersaults easily and without risk. Students are fitted with a bungee harness suited to their body weight and brought up to the required height with a winch. Off we go. Jumping in a bungee harness is something everyone can try. Somersault belts are used as a safety belt for harnesses and bungee harnesses. Twisting belts are used in a professional context, as these also make it possible for the gymnast to rotate around his own body axis. Springy gym floors present a problem to anyone conducting trampoline gymnastics. These can cause the trampoline to sway when it's jumped on. This is caused by the high pressure that's being applied on small supporting surfaces resting on the floor of the hall, which yields under the weight. To avoid the trampoline moving, base plates with non-slip undersides are placed beneath the trampoline legs, which greatly increases the supporting surface of the feet. They provide the trampoline with greater stability, therefore facilitating safer practice. Push-in mats were developed specifically for trampoline gymnastics and are excellent for use in training and competition. Their minimal weight allows them to be used with great speed and flexibility to secure the gymnast when he loses control on the trampoline by greatly reducing the impact of landing. The ice pad is the optimal training aid for trampoline sports. It reduces the propulsion of the trampoline bed by about 60%. The ice pad is an ideal training support for beginners in particular. In addition, the mat is also well suited to working with participants with disabilities or for rehabilitation measures. It can be simply placed upon the trampoline and removed as and when required. For ongoing technical information, please visit us at www.eurotramp.com or contact us direct by phone. Assembly and dismantling. Trampoline storage. Trampolines are normally folded and stored in the equipment room. This competition trampoline, which has been folded, is around 2 meters high. Once assembled, this trampoline requires 2 meters headroom. and is usually higher than the entrance to the equipment room. It requires just less than 3 meters 50 by 80 centimeters of floor space. When storing several trampolines, each piece of equipment requires an additional 50 centimeters of space. 2 trampolines require a depth of 1 meter 30. When storing 2 or more trampolines, there are 3 storage possibilities with different space requirements. As has already been shown, the trampolines can be aligned directly alongside each other, in a roof shape and in a V shape. The last arrangement requires the largest amount of space and should therefore be avoided. According to the nature of the equipment room and the other items stored there, it may be prudent to position the trampolines lengthwise or diagonally. The trampolines can easily be secured with a lock and chain to avoid inappropriate usage. In order to avoid injuries when taking the equipment out of the equipment store, the following points should be observed. To maneuver the trampoline out of the storage room, it must first be pulled. In doing this, there's a danger that the trampoline may roll over a foot. At a total weight of almost 500 weight, a weight of over 50 kilograms rests on each wheel of the roller stand. An accident such as this can be very painful and can even lead to injury. For this reason, only experienced people should be allowed to maneuver the trampoline and begin pushing it out as soon as possible. Trampoline assembly. An adult with adequate physical strength can assemble a competition trampoline alone. All the steps demonstrated here can also be carried out by 2 or more persons. When the trampoline has been pushed into the correct position, it must then be levered from the low into the high position. To do this, the person carrying out the assembly first takes firm hold of the lever pointing upwards on the lifting roller stand. Before taking hold of the red safety knob on the lifting roller stand, the safety knob is pulled out completely and the lever moved slightly to the side. The now unsecured lever is grasped with both hands and pushed downwards as far as it will go. Shortly before the lowest point, the lever is blocked by the safety bolt. The safety knob is pulled out again and the lever brought into a horizontal position until the safety knob clicks in audibly. Check that the lever is properly in place by jerking it firmly. Repeat the same process with the second lifting roller stand. The trampoline's tension chains are usually tangled up. They are disentangled so that the upper chain hangs free. This step can be carried out later. The next step is to first grasp the internal leg section, then the external leg section, and pull it out slightly. The internal leg section is now positioned against the external stand, resulting in a triangle with the frame. Now, with slight pressure applied on the external leg section, the trampoline can be tilted. In doing so, a firm grip must be maintained on the internal leg section to ensure that it does not fall on the ground. The trampoline is tilted far enough to allow the internal leg section to easily move past the external leg section and be placed on the ground. The back should be maintained in a straight position throughout if possible. Through pressure on the free hanging leg section with the foot and subsequent pushing back of the leg section at the same time as pushing down the center, the trampoline is tilted to the point that the leg section on the floor slides through underneath until it's hanging in the air. Now the leg section is pulled out as far as possible, and the hinge of the leg section pushed down until the tension chains are taut. Make sure all the links in the chain are straight at this point. Then the chains on the other side of the trampoline can be attached in the same way. Make sure that the chains are not twisted by briefly allowing them to hang down. When the chains are being attached, the tops should point down beneath the trampoline. Now the trampoline is placed entirely on the stands by lowering it using the lifting roller stand. The levers of the lifting roller stand are again grasped at the end, the safety knobs pulled out, and the lever moved far enough to the side to allow the roller stand to be easily pulled out. When pulling it out, keep hold of the lever of the roller stand and the upper safety bracket. The bracket can tilt downwards and, if it's not being held properly, land painfully on the hand holding the lever. The roller stands are put away in the equipment room with the external sides facing upwards. If the roller stands are joined together with a sturdy tube, they can be transported and stored more securely. When removing the roller stands, the stands slide outwards on smooth floors and the chains automatically tighten. With very new trampolines, as in our case, or dull floors, the stands do not slide out automatically and the chains are not taut. In this instance, help must be given by pulling out a stand. The person conducting the assembly now slightly lifts the first end section and pushes it into the vertical position. After stepping around the end section, it's slowly lowered down. Both foot stands are then placed inside the relevant sockets. Then the second end section is folded down in the same way. But because this fully extends the trampoline bed, the end section must be put up via the vertical position before the person conducting the assembly steps around. He takes hold of the footstand and uses it to pull the end section down until he can grasp the frame. The end section is released. With a little practice, it can be even easier to fold out the second side. This involves the assistant climbing up onto the trampoline and lifting the end section up to the vertical position. Then the assistant climbs around the end section and steps on the diagonal stand. The tension of the trampoline bed means the end section can be maintained in an upright position. The assistant now walks down along the leg section, taking the end section down along with him. Non-slip shoes are an absolute must here. The end section must be caught before it reaches the horizontal position to avoid damage to the hinges. After folding out the end section, the footstands are placed inside the relevant sockets. This is facilitated by pressure applied on the footstands with the lower leg. Once the 4 hinge protectors on the frame pads have been located, the trampoline assembly is complete. When dismantling the trampoline, the first thing to do is to remove and fold away the 4 hinge protectors on the pads. Then, on one side of the trampoline, both footstands of an end section are taken out of their sockets. Using both hands, the free trampoline end section is now raised. At some point, the bed tension takes over, and a tight grip must be maintained on the end section to stop it from flying over too quickly. The bed tension rapidly recedes, and the end section can now be taken on the other side and lowered away in a controlled fashion. After disengaging both footstands on the second trampoline end section, this is also folded in. Now there is barely any tension on the bed, and pushing the end section upwards requires more force. The next step is to insert the roller stand into the central part of the trampoline. The safety brackets must be held up in order for this to happen. The height of the spigot on the roller stand can be adjusted by moving the lever. The trampoline is jacked up by pushing down the lever. The red safety knob on the roller stand is pulled out and the lever moved downwards into the vertical position. The safety knob is released and checks made to ensure that the safety bolt has been securely engaged by jiggling the lever. The same procedure applies to the other side. To fold up the trampoline, the chains on one side must be disengaged on the same side as the hinge of the upper trampoline end section. To loosen the chain, a tug on the chain in the direction of the hinge is sufficient. The chains can only be properly disengaged if they are loose like this. The person dismantling the trampoline then lifts the leg section up in front of his hips and moves forwards. This tilts the trampoline in the vertical direction, but it can only tilt to the point where the leg section on the floor can be comfortably lifted past the leg section hanging downwards. If you go too far, you will no longer be able to grasp the leg section on the floor. After lifting the lower leg section, the trampoline tilts into the vertical position. Both leg sections are pushed down against the trampoline. The upper stand secures the lower one. It's important to ensure that the frame in the center of the trampoline clicks into the roller stand hook. The locking device also comes in a T-shape. It secures the frame more efficiently than the hook-shaped device. So that the chains are not in the way when the trampoline is being lowered, they must be tied up. The upper chain is brought through the lower chain and hooked up to itself. The same procedure is followed on both sides. When the trampoline is being lowered, the person conducting the assembly first grasps the lever of the lifting roller stand and secures it in this way. Now the red safety knob is pulled out. The lever is now disengaged and is moved to the side. It has to be held with both hands. Shortly before reaching the vertical position, the red safety knob must be pulled out again to be able to put the lever in a vertical position. The safety knob clicks in audibly. Check that it's properly engaged by jiggling it around. The second side is lowered in the same way. The new lifting roller stand, safe and comfort, dispense with the complicated lever system and are lifted up and down with the help of a hydraulic mechanism. After lowering, the trampoline can be moved away. The school trampoline shown in the following film is smaller than a competitive trampoline and has roller stands instead of lifting roller stands. This means there are several differences in its assembly and dismantling. If possible, assembly should be conducted by several people. 2 adults can comfortably transport a trampoline if one is pushing and the other steering, although the view is restricted on one side. If children are given clear instructions, they can also help in the transportation of the trampoline. While the supervisory adult pushes from behind, 2 children walk on the left and the right of the trampoline and guide its progress. They should walk closely behind the front wheel, but maintain sufficient distance from the rear roller stand to avoid injury. Assistants must stand on both sides of the trampoline to ensure an unrestricted view of the entire area in front of the trampoline. One person should always be responsible for supervision. The leg sections are folded out just as the competition trampoline. The person conducting the assembly first takes hold of the internal leg section and then the external leg section. The leg section together with the frame form a triangle and the trampoline is tilted by applying pressure on the upper leg section. The interior leg section is slowly placed on the floor and the center of the trampoline is tilted into the horizontal position as the leg section on the floor slides through underneath the trampoline. The leg section is received by the second assistant. The chains are extended into a taut position. Keeping the back straight, the more powerful assistant now raises the trampoline on one side, where the other removes the roller stand as quickly as possible. The trampoline is then released. Releasing it sooner would damage the roller stand after a while. This step is simpler if other experienced assistants are on hand. The trampoline is raised by 2 assistants while the others remove the roller stands. They must be given clear instructions in advance. Just as in the case of the competition trampoline, both end sections are now folded out. It should be noted that this trampoline is not as high or as heavy as the competition version. As 2 assistants push up the trampoline end sections from inside, they facilitate the lifting up from outside. Experienced participants can also be helpful, in particular with the second end sections, by grabbing hold of the footstands while the end sections are being folded out and pulling them downwards to make the process easier. They can also immediately engage the supporting struts. Finally, the 4 hinge protectors are fixed into place and the assembly is complete. When dismantling the trampoline, the first step is to open the hinge protectors. Then disengage the footstands. Care must be taken to ensure that the first end section does not flip over when it's being folded in. Both end sections are put down slowly and not allowed to fall. The roller stands are retrieved from the equipment room and inserted into the center of the trampoline. They are positioned at an angle, so that both assistants can then take hold of the trampoline at the leg sections. Lift it up, all the while keeping their backs as straight as possible. The roller stands swing into a vertical position. Experienced participants can also help with inserting the roller stands if need be. On the side of the hinge of the upper trampoline end section, the chains are now pulled taut by lifting one leg section. The trampoline is pushed away and tilted. Both assistants take hold of the leg section on the floor and lift it up. The trampoline tilts into the vertical position. Both leg sections are pushed down against the trampoline. The trampoline is then pushed into the equipment store. Care should be taken to ensure there is nothing in the way. A trampoline should only be stored away by adults or experienced participants. Not stopping in time or moving too rapidly into the equipment store can cause injury. Once a trampoline has been assembled, it must be secured. Firstly, vaulting boxes are positioned at the front and heights compared. Alternatively, as in our example, special safety platforms can be used. Then mats are placed on the boxes and the trampoline. Then more gym mats or vaulting mats are placed around the trampoline. In amateur sports practice, 2 trampolines in a row could be covered with gymnastic mats. As a manufacturer of trampolines, Eurotramp recommends the exclusive use of original accessories. Further information on original accessories can be found at www.eurotramp.com. The use of boxes as a medium for the overlaying of safety mats is not envisaged on the part of the manufacturer. However, the use of boxes as a substitute for the original safety platform by Eurotramp has been a common method for decades to secure the front sides of a trampoline in school sports practice. The possibility being demonstrated here is also recommended and accepted by German insurers. When using boxes and standard mats measuring 2 by 3 meters, great care must be taken to ensure that the mats are always placed correctly on the trampoline and on the box. This is the only way to guarantee safety when the equipment is in use. Standard gym vaulting boxes have a height of 1 meter 10. This is ideal for the safeguarding of school trampolines. However, in the case of competition trampolines, this box height means the safety mat is in a sloping position. A height of at least 1 meter 20 is required here. In order that the safety mats lie horizontally, 2 gym mats can be used to make up the height difference. Very small children can be assisted in their ascent and descent of the box by a set of steps. The initial session usually involves exercises to help students get used to the equipment. It's usual here to facilitate ascent via steps from one of the front sides. Trampolines for synchronized moves must be positioned at the same height and be placed at a distance of 2 meters from each other. Safety checks should be carried out before using the trampoline. The frame padding should be intact. The fixing straps should also be undamaged. The rubber cable in the upper section of the leg brace should be intact. They ensure that the leg brace remain firmly in the sockets. A trampoline bed is suspended by 118 steel springs. If a student jumps onto the springs, the open ends of the steel springs can cause injury. This is why these open ends must always be facing downwards. If the steel springs have been placed the wrong way around, or if they need to be replaced, then this should be undertaken immediately. When replacing a steel spring, it must first be disengaged on the frame side. This requires some force. It can then be easily removed from the bed side. It should first be secured to the bed side, taking care to ensure that the hook is pointing downwards. The spring is then secured to the frame. This again requires some force. Now the hook is pointing downwards. The 4 chains of a trampoline must all demonstrate the same level of tension so that the trampoline can perform to its optimal capacity. When fastening the chains, the tip of the hook should point downwards. The chain must be adjusted so that every second link is aligned the same way. The lock nuts and tension device must be properly tightened so that the chain alignment does not change. The tension of the chain can be checked by moving it backwards and forwards. In the case of older trampoline models, the stitches that bind the nylon bands of the bed together can be worn out. They should be checked at regular intervals. If the bands move apart when someone is jumping on the bed, injury cannot be ruled out. Safety. Before a participant steps onto a trampoline, several points must be explained. The most important is that the instructors can be sure that they will follow all instructions to the letter. This is the only way to avoid accidents and utilize the trampoline to its full capacity. Rule number 1. There is always only one person on the trampoline, unless otherwise instructed. Rule number 2. Safety is more important than jump height. Rule number 3. No one is allowed to try out a jump without permission. Rule number 4. No one is allowed to jump from the trampoline onto the ground. Rule number 5. All instructions to be carried out immediately. Rule number 6. There should be nothing and nobody underneath the trampoline unless this has been expressly ordered. Participants should wear appropriate clothing for the training session and take care to avoid anything that may potentially pose a danger or cause injury. Watches, chains, and other jewelry should be removed before the session. Small earrings can be worn. Long hair should be tied back. T-shirts must either be close-fitting or tucked into the trousers so that they don't restrict the vision of the participant or the instructor. Any pockets on tracksuits should be closed. What is the appeal of trampoline gymnastics? The energy of a jump can, for the most part, be taken into the next jump, meaning that energy is accrued, making it possible to attain heights unthinkable in everyday life. When the trampoline bed is pushed down to its lowest point, the jumper can extend legs and hips and force it down a little more, resulting in greater propulsion. This works until the energy lost during the jump into the bed is just as high as the energy that the jumper transfers to the bed by the extension of legs and hips. This principle of energy addition also applies when 2 or more participants jump on the trampoline at the same time. A medicine ball shows just how this countering effect works. If a second person tenses the trampoline bed shortly before the ball lands on it, the energy is transferred to the ball, which is then propelled unexpectedly high in the air. On the one hand, this phenomenon can present great dangers to inexperienced jumpers, but experienced jumpers and coaches can make good use of this effect, for example in the practice of particular types of games such as seat juggling, and when assistance is being offered by a coach. A competition trampoline is around 1.20 m high, and a school trampoline is around 1.10 m high. This means actually getting up onto the trampoline is difficult for smaller children. This problem can be addressed by a small box or set of box steps. Climbing up onto the trampoline without a box is best achieved by a taller participant if he places one hand to the side of the body and the other hand centrically in front of the body on the padded frame. Then the participant jumps up, swings a leg to the side where no hand is in the way. At the same time, the participant pushes up with both hands so that he is up on the padded frame. If the hand on the side where the leg initially swings around is not in front of the body, the participant knocks away the arm with the knee. A turn into the sitting position on the frame is also an effective method for taller participants. Getting off the trampoline is not strenuous, but not without an element of risk. The frame cover is slightly raised and thereby represents a tripping hazard. As the participants approach the edge of the trampoline bed, this is pushed further down by his weight so that the tripping hazard becomes even higher. For this reason, the participant should always raise his foot higher than usual and place it on the frame padding from above. After stepping on the cover, the participant places one or both hands on the frame padding and descends from the trampoline. Basic rule: at least one hand should be touching the cover when getting down from the trampoline. Of course, there's also the possibility of using a box step here. Familiarisation exercises. The trampoline bed stretches when you stand on it. This is the first thing that an inexperienced student must get used to because it feels very different to the floor. A popular and highly effective way of getting used to the trampoline is for participants to climb up onto the trampoline one after the other via a box step and copy the exercises. If 2 or more trampolines are available, they are positioned in a row behind one another. Participants must be informed of several basic rules. Rule number 1. There is always only one person on the trampoline, unless otherwise instructed. Rule number 2. Safety is more important than jump height. Rule number 3. No one is allowed to try out a jump without permission. Rule number 4. No one is allowed to jump from the trampoline onto the ground. Participants begin by walking at a normal pace over the trampoline, then more quickly. Walking backwards is a more difficult exercise for many people, with the unfamiliar surface of the bed making orientation harder. A second person on the bed makes the surface even more unsteady. Their arms linked together, the two cross the bed together. This exercise can also involve one of the two participants turning around and going backwards. The trampoline bed can also be crossed using dance moves such as the polonaise. Take care that no one is pushing when you climb down off the trampoline. The red lines on the trampoline bed are used as guidelines, with participants completing a circuit of the internal rectangle. This puts orientation ability on the bed to the test. When there are two trampolines, the direction of movement changes with the trampoline. The moonwalk provides an initial sense of the lightness of trampoline gymnastics. The participant crosses the bed with a bouncing step, ensuring that a maximum of 1 foot leaves the bed at any one time. An exercise known as the sewing machine playfully provides a sense of what it feels like to stop on the trampoline. It involves each leg pushing down the bed one at a time, but before the bed can transfer the energy back to the body, the knees are bent, thereby killing the momentum. The exercise becomes more difficult when students are instructed to conduct a full turn in the center of the bed. The direction of the turn can be altered on the second bed. An exercise known as John Wayne or rodeo riding also practices the stopping movement, but using two legs. It involves pushing down the bed with two legs and avoiding the rebound. The upper body should remain still if possible and not move forwards or backwards. At the end, the participant slaps both hands down on the bed without falling onto it. Stopping is practiced in this manner. The skiing exercises use the red lines as a piste. Participants jump between the lines in a slalom movement on both legs with feet together. This exercise also involves clapping the hands down on the bed at the end. Participants discover how difficult it is to conduct precisely targeted jumps in the following exercise, which involves jumping from the start of the bed onto the first line, onto the cross, onto the second line, and up to the front of the bed in a standing position. The trampoline can also be traversed in a sitting position. It's a chance for instructors to introduce the correct sitting position at this stage. Participants begin bouncing in a seated position and move by pushing off forwards with the hands. This can also be seen as an introduction to the seat drop. Participants may feel a little dizzy when carrying out the next exercise, tree trunk rolls. Sidewards rolls are performed crosswise to the bed. The direction should be altered on the second trampoline. This exercise gives participants their first tummy and back contact with the bed as they rotate around the longitudinal axis of the body. As long as the standard of participants' forward rolls has been checked on the floor in advance, these can also be performed on the trampoline. Students are required to conduct 2 or 3 forward rolls on each trampoline, which means they must try and carry them out with little momentum. The first head-first movements on the trampoline are performed in this manner. Backward rolls are not allowed. After several exercises without a partner, one exercise with a partner can now be introduced. The partners stand in front of each other and grasp each other on the lower arms. The arms are tensed. The two swing their arms in a regular rhythm until the swinging builds up to a jump. Once the partner jumps are working well, the two can also begin turning around each other. The direction of the turn can also be varied. This is a way of giving participants a sense of what it's like to have a second person on the trampoline, something that is frequently the case in methodical exercise series. As preparation for a jump or an exercise, the straight jump is the most important jump in trampolining. Its quality defines the quality of the ensuing jump. The height and the quality of the straight jump depend on interplay of legs, body and arms. The arms are stretched upwards above the head, while legs and hips are bent and extended. It's the timing of each individual movement that's crucial here. Let's take a closer look at those individual movements. Knee and hip joints are slightly bent for landing. For landing on the trampoline bed, the feet are placed down flat and hip-width apart, so the hip, knee and foot joints are aligned exactly above each other in the plane of motion, thereby optimally distributing the weight of the body. During the initial jump on the trampoline bed, the knees and hips are gradually straightened. The upper body is straightened up until the lowest point has been reached. The eyes are directed towards the end of the trampoline bed. As the upwards movement of the trampoline bed begins, the body is straightened up completely. The bent arms are pulled up closely to the body. The feet push themselves off strongly from the foot joints as the body leaves the trampoline bed. Immediately after leaving the trampoline bed, the legs are closed and the toes pushed downwards. This is described, rather incorrectly anatomically speaking, as a stretching of the foot. The arms continue to be extended upwards. Shortly before the upper point of return, the arms reach the extension of the body and stop for a moment until the downwards movement begins. The participant brings the straight arms down outwards from the body. The arms must not go past the line of the body though. Hips and knees are slightly bent before landing, and the feet set hip-width apart. The upper body is slightly inclined forwards. The body is stretched out for the next jump. There are many different arm postures when conducting the straight jump. The downward movement is the same in all variants of the jump, but when moving the arms upwards, the posture can differ. When carrying out the left-hand form, the arms are bent closely against the body and pulled into the body extension. With the middle form, the arms are extended in front of the body during the upwards movement. When conducting the third variation, the arms are extended outwards from the body and lifted up into the body extension. The first variation is from a biomechanical perspective the most effective, but it often presents beginners with difficulties. The second form is easier to learn, but can cause uncertainties and incorrect posture when the jumps attain greater heights. The third form is the most difficult and is rarely executed. All variations have one thing in common. Both coaches and students need to have patience when practicing the right movement. The exercises must be repeated regularly, but not over-practiced. Generally, beginners find it difficult to achieve the right coordination of arm and leg movements. For this reason, the complex overall movement is divided up into leg and arm movements. To learn the leg movement, the hands are supported on the hips so that the participant can concentrate on the leg work. The restricted freedom of the arms also forces the participant to keep the upper body upright and calm. This requires a great deal of practice. When practicing leg work, special care should be taken to ensure that the legs are closed shortly after the takeoff jump and the toes are pushed downwards. The legs are only placed hip-width apart again shortly before landing. After concentrating on the leg work for a while, attention is turned to arm posture. The legs can be neglected for the time being. Because beginners do not usually jump very high, it's not possible to maintain the arms above the head as required. The two movements are then brought together. The participant begins with the leg work. The hands are supported on the hips. When the leg rhythm is correct, the arms are introduced in the manner that's been practiced. Before a single jump, the arms are normally held upright. When conducting the last straight jump before the single jump, the arms are no longer brought down for landing, but positioned vertically over the shoulders. Arms are also raised in jump combinations. From a coordination point of view, it's simpler for beginners to permanently maintain the arms in an upright position. The disadvantage of this is that it requires good body musculature and that especially high jumps are not feasible. When conducting higher jumps, the arms are brought up above the head during the last straight jump before the single jump, brought down laterally to the body shortly before the upper reversal point, and finally positioned again back up in line with the body during the downward movement. The coordination of arm and leg movements is very difficult for small children to learn. As an alternative to a target movement, a variation that allows for a slower arm movement can be utilized. This involves positioning the arms straight up above the head with every second straight jump, alternating with placing the arms against the body. This approach is, however, not suited to high jumps. In order to practice the arm positioning, the movements follow a rhythmic pattern by following 3 straight jumps with a straight jump with straight arms. The sequence should be repeated 10 times. Errors committed when conducting the straight jump are usually due to the participant's lack of experience or carelessness. Closing the legs is not a question of physical capability, but a question of routine and due care and attention. Students can be forced to keep their legs closed by placing an object between the feet. If not enough time is devoted to correct arm posture at the outset, errors manifest themselves and are difficult to correct. Irregular arm posture must be corrected by referring to the brief cessation of movement at the upper reversal point. The term arm circle should generally be avoided, as it conjures up an incorrect impression of how the movement should be carried out. Should the rhythm of the arm movement not fit the jump movement, experienced participants can readjust the movement. In competition in particular, it's important to be able to suddenly intercept the momentum of a jump. In order for this to happen, the legs must be almost straight in the downward movement, just as in a normal straight jump, but when the reverse movement sets in, the legs are suddenly bent and the upper body inclined forwards. This expels the energy from the trampoline bed, and the participant remains still. Basic jumps are the jumps aside from the straight jump that include neither somersault nor twist rotations and that use a takeoff from the feet and also use the feet for landing. These include the tuck jump, the straddle jump, and the pike jump. Of the 3 basic jumps, the tuck is the easiest. It can already be introduced during the first session. Like all basic jumps, the tuck is performed with upright arms. The body is straight during the climbing phase. The legs are closed immediately after the takeoff jump. Shortly before the highest point, the legs are suddenly tucked, the knees remain closed, the hands grasp the shins directly beneath the knees. The feet are pointed. Arms are positioned against the legs. The tuck position is captured at the upper reverse point, between the upper and lower leg, just as between the upper body and the thighs. The angle is 45 degrees or smaller. The back is straight, the head aligned with the backbone. Shortly after the highest point, the legs and hips are suddenly straightened at the same time. The upper body is straightened up, the arms stretched out sidewards and brought down against the body. Shortly before landing, the arms disengage from the body and are raised above the head as an extension of the body as it sinks down into the trampoline bed. In the case of great uncertainty, the tuck can initially be practiced from the standing position. During initial attempts, the arms are pulled up from below and positioned upright, ready for the takeoff jump in ensuing attempts. A good start jump should be aimed for as quickly as possible. The positioning of the arms during the body extension is difficult to coordinate. For this reason, beginners can bring the arms directly into the upright position during the straightening of the body out of the tuck position. To learn how a tuck is performed in a jump combination, straight jumps are introduced between the tuck jumps. Frequent repetition is required. In the next step, the straight jumps are left out. The resulting time pressure means that the quality of the jumps suffers. A high number of repetitions with corresponding corrective work are required. During the first attempts to carry out a tuck, the heels are often pulled up to the buttocks and the knees are not pulled up in front of the chest. Instructors should issue the command, "knee to the chest" here. During the tuck jump, most children do not pay attention to their feet and pull their toes upwards. If they're reminded about foot posture several times, the error is usually easy to correct. If the tuck is initiated directly after the takeoff jump despite adequate jump height, a feeling for the upper reverse point must be improved. To do this, the participant conducts several consecutive straight jumps and calls out "hop" at each reverse point. Immediate feedback is provided by the coach or other experienced participant. If the tuck is initiated early, the arms fall down forwards out of the upright position and cause the participant to tip forwards during landing. Posture errors can occur despite a stable tuck jump. Beginners often don't close the legs, meaning that the tuck is conducted with open knees. If instructions do not succeed in solving the problem, the participant is given a piece of foam rubber to place between the knees during the build-up jumps that must not be allowed to fall when carrying out the tuck jump. If the participant places the hands on the knees instead of gripping around the shins, a reminder of the correct positioning is usually sufficient. The straddle jump is similar to the tuck jump in terms of ease. Here, the flexibility of the legs is of crucial significance to the quality of the jump. Like the tuck jump, the straddle can be introduced during the first session on the trampoline. Like all basic jumps, the straddle is performed with the arms in a straight line above the head. In the climbing phase, the body is straight. The legs are closed immediately after the takeoff. Shortly before the highest point, the legs are suddenly straddled but remain extended. The straddle position is reached at the upper reverse point. The legs are parallel to the trampoline bed, the fingertips touch the straightened toes, and the arms are straight. The back is straight, the head aligned with the spine. The angle between the thighs is at least 90 degrees. Shortly after the highest point, the legs are suddenly closed and the hips simultaneously straightened. The upper body is straightened up. The arms are stretched out to the sides and positioned against the body. Shortly before the landing, the arms disengage from the body and are raised above the head with an extension of the body as the feet come down onto the trampoline bed. The positioning of the arms during the body extension is difficult to coordinate. For this reason, just as with the tuck jump, beginners can bring the arms directly into the upright position during the straightening of the body out of the straddle position. Owing to the lack of jump height while learning the straddle jump, a straightened climbing phase is usually not possible. The straddle movement then begins immediately after the takeoff jump and ends shortly before landing. To learn how the straddle jump is performed in a jump combination, straight jumps are introduced between the straddle jumps. In the next step, the straight jumps are left out. The resulting time pressure means that the quality of the jumps suffers. A high number of repetitions with corresponding corrective work is required. The task is made additionally difficult by changing to other types of jump. The introduction of a half twist, for example, results in some uncertainty and calls on the participant to perform clean jumps. Fear of not having enough time to conduct the straddle movement often means it's initiated too early. This often results in the upper body tilting forwards, which makes for a shaky landing. Instructors should issue the commands, "Jump just as you would for a straight jump," or "Don't start the straddle movement until you're high up in the air." When the legs are brought upwards and the upper body makes no counter movement, the participant tips backwards. Landing on the back like this is dangerous. Instructors can issue the command, "Touch your toes," to force the participant to tilt the body forwards. If the knees are bent during a straddle jump, instructors should remind participants of the correct posture. The straddle position may have to be practiced in the meantime on the floor in a sitting position. Mostly the problem is caused by a lack of leg flexibility. A lack of leg flexibility often results in an angle between the thighs that is less than 90 degrees. In the case of gymnastic deficiencies in the leg area, any attempt to touch the toes with the fingers often means the distance is shortened by pulling up the toes. Apart from work to improve flexibility, the instruction, "Don't touch your toes, just your ankles," can help the participant to focus on straightening the feet. In contrast to the tuck and straddle jump, most participants find even the most basic form of the pike jump difficult in the beginning. It should not necessarily be introduced in the first session. Like all basic jumps, the pike jump is begun with arms in the upright position over the head. The body is straight in the climbing phase. And the legs are closed immediately after the takeoff jump. Shortly before the highest point, the body is suddenly piked at the hips, legs and feet remain straight. The pike position is attained at the upper reverse point. The legs are parallel to the trampoline bed, the fingertips touch the stretched out toes, the arms are stretched. The back is as straight as possible, the head aligned with the spine. Shortly after the highest point, the hips are suddenly straightened. The upper body is straightened up. The arms are stretched and raised above the head and remain there until landing. The positioning of the arms during the straightening of the body, just as it's usual for the tuck and straddle jump, is possible, but for biomechanical reasons often leads to the participant landing on the back. Good leg flexibility is a prerequisite for the pike jump. The movement can be prepared by deep bends in the standing and sitting position on the floor. The pike is learned in its entirety. Owing to the lack of jump height while learning the pike jump, A straightened climbing phase is usually impossible. The pike movement then begins immediately after the takeoff jump and also ends shortly before the landing. To learn how to perform pike jump in a jump combination, straight jumps are introduced between the pike jumps. In the next step, the straight jumps are left out. The resulting time pressure means the quality of the jump suffers. A high number of repetitions with corresponding corrective work is required. The task is made additionally difficult by changing to other types of jump. The introduction of a half twist, for example, results in some uncertainty and calls on the participant to perform clean jumps. If the knees are bent during a pike jump, instructors should remind participants of the correct posture. The pike position may have to be practiced in the meantime on the floor in a sitting position. Mostly the problem is caused by a lack of leg flexibility. In the case of gymnastic deficiencies in the leg area, any attempt to touch the toes with the fingers often means the distance is shortened by pulling up the toes. Apart from work to improve flexibility, the instruction, "Don't touch your toes, just your ankles," can help the participant to focus on straightening the feet. There are two possible causes of an open pike position: a lack of leg flexibility or a cautious jump for fear of not being able to complete the movement. Fear of not having enough time to conduct the pike movement often means it's initiated too early. This often results in the upper body tilting forwards, which makes for a shaky landing. Instructors should issue the commands, "Jump just as you would for a straight jump," or "Don't start the pike movement until you're high up in the air." When the legs are brought upwards and the upper body makes no counter movement, the participant tips backwards. Landing on the back like this is dangerous. Instructors can issue the command, "Touch your toes," to force the participant to tilt the body forwards. Unlike the tuck or straddle jump, it's awkward to bring the arms down to the sides when stretching out of the pike position. By way of an apparent rotation, the participant ends up in a backward position when bringing the arms down. Rotations around the body's longitudinal axis are described in trampolining as twists. Most beginners are unaware that they've integrated a half twist into their first jump attempts, and this movement can be practiced during the first session on the trampoline. The full twist is considerably harder to jump and does not usually work out right away, but it can be attempted at a very early stage. A key factor in later jumps with twists is that the preferred twist direction is determined early on. There is no infallible method, but trying out different ways usually brings about an accurate result. If the half twist is performed with the arms pulled up from below, the arms can either be brought up bent and close to the body, or stretched and taken up above the head. Just as in all other jumps, the arms should, however, be extended straight upwards at the start. This technique is slightly more difficult than the arm pull-up from below. but it's in keeping with the general technique for jump transitions. When learning the half twist, it's easiest to pull the arms up from below. This variation can be selected at first. Landing with the arms down is also a simpler version of the jump and should only be accepted in the early training stages. The jump is begun with arms extended straight upwards. The legs are closed after the takeoff jump. The feet are stretched. The twist momentum must be controlled from the start to ensure that exactly a half twist has been completed upon landing. The landing is conducted like the takeoff jump with arms extended upwards and slightly open legs. There are several ways to determine the twist direction. One is to turn over from the back onto the stomach. The space around the participant should be similar on both the left and right. The coach must on no account stand in the participant's line of vision. He should stand at his head or feet and issue the signal to turn from there. Another method is to compare the quality of twists to the left and right. This involves the participant standing on the trampoline facing the coach and trying to jump a half or full twist from the standing position. After 2 attempts on the left and 2 on the right, a decision can be taken as to the preferred direction. To improve the stability of the twist, several consecutive twists interspersed with intermediary jumps are performed. The arms are, as a rule, permanently extended upwards, but can, however, be pulled up from below in the early training stages. The technique can be further ingrained by practicing it in combination with other jumps. Simple basic jumps are a good choice here. Carelessness often results in participants leaving the legs open. Reminders from the coach can solve this problem. The most frequently observed phenomenon is the wrong twist momentum, while one participant does not twist far enough. Another will go too far. The coach does not usually need to make any reference to this, and students usually solve the problem through independent practice. Unlike the half twist, the full twist is not necessarily learned during the first session on the trampoline. A bad attempt can lead to a fall, a jump onto the side, or a sprained ankle or knee. A stable execution is important. The arms are stretched upwards for the takeoff jump. The twist impulse comes from the feet, hips and shoulders do not rotate. The arms are extended vertically up against the head. The legs are closed immediately after the takeoff jump, the feet stretched. Shortly before landing, the legs are opened to hip width, the feet aligned in a straight position, hips and knees slightly bent. The full twist only differs from the half twist in the twist momentum. From a technical point of view, there is no difference. Rather than a takeoff jump with arms extended upwards above the head, a takeoff jump into the twist is more stable if the arms are pulled up from below, as the pull-up can help with balance. Before the first attempt, the twist direction must be checked with the help of a basic half-twist jump. The twist direction must always be the same. The participant, in our example, twists to the left. It is difficult for beginners to perform a full twist with arms extended upwards, as the body can easily tilt out of the vertical position. Initially, pulling the arms up from below is a good way of getting a feel for the twist. The switch to a twist with arms extended upwards should be made as early as possible. The preparatory stage is shortened as a way of stabilizing the twist by only allowing the integration of one intermediary jump. The exercise can be conducted with arms extended upwards, or with arms pulled up from below. Another variation as a way of stabilizing the twist is to integrate a basic jump into the twist series. The correct body posture for the twist is distinguished by a straight line from the fingertips to the tips of the toes. The arms are often not held vertically, but slightly tilted forwards. This means the body tilts sideways. If a participant loses body tension during the twist, this is usually caused by a tilting of the body due to incorrect arm posture or incorrect initiation of the twist. Beginners in particular often initiate the twist with their shoulders, which means the hips rotate against the shoulders, resulting in an inharmonious movement. This error is easily corrected by a reminder from the coach. Occasionally, the upper body tilts slightly to the side during initiation of a twist, pushing the participant out of the vertical position. The initiation must originate from the ankles. Carelessness is usually the reason for an open leg posture. Usually, this error can be corrected by instruction. In some cases, additional floor exercises may be required. Twist momentum is usually not under control in the early stages. But after a little practice, participants soon acquire a feeling for this. The seat drop can be varied in many different ways. Beginners like to allow themselves to fall into the sitting position even if they're not asked to do so. This is perfectly safe to do from a low jump height and quickly leads on to a basic form of the seat drop. The seat drop can be rapidly improved with increasing practice. When conducting a seat drop in its correct form, the arms are extended upwards above the head. The body remains completely straight until it reaches the upper reverse point and attains a slight backward tilt. Body posture remains unchanged from the takeoff to the upper reverse point. For the downward movement, the outstretched arms are brought down in front of the body, the hips bent, the upper body remains slightly tilted backwards. At the moment of landing, the legs are placed down flat, the upper body has a slight backward tilt, and the hands are positioned diagonally under the buttocks and placed on the trampoline bed, the fingertips pointing towards the feet. When the body hits the trampoline bed, it creates a funnel-shaped dip. The arms must remain relaxed and bent at this point. If the arms are straight, the participant is propelled forwards. At the lowest point, the upper body is still slightly tilted backwards, but the back and head are straight. One variation of the seat drop allows the hands to be placed down alongside the thighs. Although the sitting position is stable, there is considerable risk of falling forwards onto the feet. The pressure on the lumbar spine can be increased. Most participants perform the seat drop straight away. It can also be easily prepared on a gym mat. The participant bounces on the trampoline in the sitting position in order to get a feeling for the seated landing. To practice managing the propulsion from the trampoline bed, the participant jumps into the standing position after several seated landings. Then the participant allows himself to fall into the sitting position from the standing position and immediately afterwards jumps back onto his feet. The feet must be pushed forwards for the seat drop. A slight backward tilt is necessary. What starts out as a swinging movement gradually becomes a light jumping movement. After several successful attempts, the arms are extended upwards during the lead-up jump and the exercise repeated. In order to enforce a minimum jump height, another jump is added after the jump into the standing position. For example, a tuck jump. At first, beginners are cautious about adopting the required tilt position in the air. This results in the heels landing before the buttocks. The upper body usually moves over the legs, which are then often bent. In this case, the participant should be issued with the instruction, push your hips and feet forward at takeoff, or you have to be slightly tilted up in the air. Beginners often end up on their backs when practicing the seat drop. There are two possible reasons for this. The participant performs the last straight jump leaning slightly forwards and ends up in a backward tilting position already before the takeoff jump. The trainer instructs the participant to hold the last straight jump on the spot and to perform a vertical takeoff jump. Another trigger for the backward movement can also be the hips moving backwards due to a lack of body tension. This problem can be addressed with the instruction to perform a strong takeoff jump, as well as tension exercises on the floor. Jumping with open legs is not a technical, but an aesthetic problem. The problem can be corrected by a short instruction, as well as tension exercises on the floor. Participants can be forced to keep the legs crossed by placing a piece of foam rubber between the feet. Fear of not attaining the seat position at the right time leads many participants to bend the hips too early. Performance can be improved by a high number of repetitions and the instruction to keep the body stretched in a straight line. If the backward tilt is initiated too early on during the takeoff jump, the sloping position is so extreme that the upper body is also too far back during landing. Learning the seat drop leads naturally on to practicing the jump to feet at the same time. The exercise can be realized in the first practice session. When standing up, the participant propels himself strongly from the trampoline bed with his hands. The upper body remains slightly tilted backwards. Immediately after the propulsion, the hips are straightened. The arms are straightened upwards and pulled up forwards into a vertical position. At the highest point, the body is completely straight and tilted slightly backwards. The same position as for the seat drop. The body posture does not change until just before the landing. The hips and knee joints are bent, the arms remain outstretched above the head. In order to facilitate a more powerful takeoff jump for a follow-on jump, the arms can be pulled up forwards after the propulsion, brought down to the sides of the body before the highest point, and positioned back above the head for landing. For participants who only attain a low jump height, the arms can be brought down to the sides of the body directly after the propulsion from the trampoline bed and positioned back above the head for the downwards movement. To stabilize the jump to the standing position, a follow-on jump is included in training. When standing up out of the sitting position, many participants tilt the upper body forwards, which then brings the entire body into a forward lean. If the participant swings the arms out in front and pulls them right up over the head, the error is corrected. The instruction can also be given to tilt the body backwards when standing up. If the hand propulsion from the trampoline bed is too weak, the participant ends up slanted backwards when standing up. The instruction to push off with more power is enough to correct this problem. If the body is tilted too far forward during a seat drop, this can cause the legs to fly upwards and result in the body tipping over backwards. The participant must not actively raise the legs during a seat drop. A good way of describing the ideal landing technique is to encourage the participant to imagine that the hollow of his knees is the first part of the leg to make contact with the bed. This error seldom occurs, but sometimes the participant overstretches the body when standing up. A slightly more relaxed overall movement and maintaining muscle tension in the stomach prevent this overstretch. Types of landings such as the seat drop, back drop, and front drop can be combined with twists. The simplest variety is the jump from a sitting position with a half twist to feet. This can be introduced at an early stage. The propulsion from the sitting position must be powerful to facilitate the twist with an early body stretch. This stretch position is maintained until shortly before landing. Then hips and knees are bent for landing. The movement is stabilized by adding a follow-on jump. Participants usually learn the jump in its entirety, but if this method does not work, the twist movement is divided up. Most participants arrive at a half twist very quickly by way of a gradual build-up. Errors committed when conducting the half twist from the sitting position are usually the result of a bad jump from the sitting position to feet, for example due to weak hand propulsion from the bed. Once this is improved, it also solves the problem arising in the target jump. If there is no hand propulsion, the participant ends up tilting backwards and leaves out the twist, or lands after the half twist with a heavy forward inclination. This error is usually only committed once and must not be corrected. If the upper body is bent forwards during the propulsion, this also usually means the twist is left out, or the participant ends up with a heavy backward inclination during landing. In this case too, the jump to feet without twist must be improved, then the target movement is also usually improved. The seat drop can be combined with a half twist. This jump is not difficult to learn and can be practiced during early training sessions. The twist is initiated from the ankles directly from the trampoline bed. The body is slightly inclined forwards. The body stretch is maintained until past the upper reverse point, until the end of the half twist. The hips are not bent until after the twist during the descent. The arms are brought back down. The legs are placed down horizontally during landing. The upper body is slightly inclined backwards. The head is straight. The hands are placed down diagonally over the buttocks, with the fingertips pointing forwards. As preparation for the half twist into the sitting position, no trampoline is required. The jump can also be prepared on a gym mat. On the trampoline, the exercise can be repeated from the standing position. Then, a light swinging movement gradually becomes a light jumping movement. Most participants learn the half twist into the sitting position in one step. If learning the entire jump at the same time does not work, the twist is divided up into sections. Firstly, the participant does not land on the trampoline in an extended position, but turns before the jump an eighth of a twist against his usual twist direction. Then the participant jumps with a part twist into the sitting position so that he lands in the usual seated position. The pre-turning before the jump is gradually increased until the half twist has been attained. When the jump is being executed correctly, the feet are pushed backwards to achieve the necessary presentation. The inclined position is often attained by pushing the upper body forwards. A reminder that the feet should be taken backwards is often sufficient. Otherwise, the takeoff point in the direction of the padded floor is relocated to restrict the landing area. If the twist momentum is not correct, the participant lands on the trampoline in a slanting position. A high number of repetitions quickly solves the problem. The same procedure is appropriate when the twist momentum is too great. If the slanting position before the seated landing is too slight, this forces an early pike position. This then leads to the twist movement being interrupted, which means the participant lands at an angle on the trampoline bed. The problem is solved by improving the initial slanting position. If the slanting position is too slight, this can also mean that the upper body moves over the legs during landing. A reminder that the slanting position needs to be greater yields a better jump quality after several attempts. When conducting a jump from the seated position with a half twist into the seated position, this combines two seated landings in one jump for the first time. Theoretically, the jump can be repeated indefinitely, although the jump height diminishes quickly as there's no real takeoff jump. The takeoff is performed from the sitting position with a powerful push-off. The hips are extended early, the arms brought up straight above the head. The twist is initiated with the takeoff. A quarter twist is completed at the upper reverse point. The body is in a vertical position up in the air. During the downward movement, the arms remain where they are until the half twist has been completed. The body inclines slightly backwards. The arms are brought down forwards and the hips are bent. The hands are placed diagonally under the buttocks for landing. The upper body leans slightly backwards. Prerequisite is the seat drop with a half twist to feet. Helpful is the half twist from the standing into the sitting position. The second part of the latter is very similar to the second part of the target jump. When the preconditions have been met, the jump can be learned in its entirety. If the quality of the jump is bad, the partial learning method can be applied. On no account is assistance required. The participant performs a half twist to feet from the sitting position. The momentum is completely killed on landing, and the participant allows himself to fall into the sitting position. He is not allowed to actively jump. The length of the pause between landing and falling is gradually reduced so that the transition becomes fluid and the target jump is soon achieved. Most participants try to initiate the twist with the arms, not with the hips. This involves not raising the arms above the head, but winding them around the body against the twist direction. Interspersed seat drops with a half twist to feet helps to develop a sense of how a twist should be initiated. Fear of not being able to complete the movement or not being able to pass under the body with the feet means some participants dispense with stretching the hips. A half twist from the sitting position to feet is also a good way of developing a sense of jump height and time available to perform the movement. A slight backward inclination is necessary before a seated landing. In combination with a half twist, a position must first be attained that becomes a slight backward inclination after the half twist. Fear of tipping forwards means many participants push themselves too weakly off the bed with their hands and end up with the upper body over the legs for the seated landing. Landing on the back is a methodical intermediate step for many jumps in the discipline, making it an important element of techniques that are introduced at a later stage. For this reason, special care must be taken to issue technically correct instructions at the outset. In everyday scenarios, no one would voluntarily allow themselves to fall onto their back from a great height. This is why most beginners approach the backdrop with a sense of fear, and misjudged reactions should be expected. Prerequisites for this jump are a good sense of the trampoline bed and strength in the muscles of the neck and hips. Arms are extended upwards for the takeoff. Hips are pushed upwards. The legs are closed immediately after takeoff, the feet extended. The body is slightly overextended in the climbing phase. The arms are retained in an extended position close against the head. The body turns backwards. At the upper reverse point, the body has completed slightly less than a quarter somersault turn. The body extension is, according to jump height, incorporated into the downwards movement. Shortly before the landing, the hips are bent with the back held straight, the arms are stretched out and lowered in front of the body. Arms and legs are almost vertical on landing. The head is slightly raised. As the trampoline bed is pushed down, the hips sink slightly lower than the shoulders. The angle between hips and thighs must be reduced to less than 90 degrees so that they remain in the vertical position. With respect to the more difficult jumps from the back position with many somersault rotations, the variation with the head in the trampoline bed is most common. Instead of bringing the chin down to the chest for landing, the back of the head is placed on the trampoline bed. The danger with beginners is that when they stand up, they throw their head backwards. In order to generate a sense of the extended body posture during the jump, it's tried out in a reclining position on a push-in mat. The pelvis is slightly raised. The arms lie stretched over the head on the mat. The legs are tightly closed. The arms must be positioned right up against the head. Jumping onto the back from the standing position means overcoming a number of hindrances. Usually, during the first attempts, the hips are bent and too little rotation is incorporated. The landing position on the trampoline bed has to be explained to the participant who adopts it on the push-in mat. According to the preferred variation, care must be taken to ensure that the head is either raised or lying on the trampoline bed. Landing with angled hips can then be attempted. The participant must ensure that the rotation has sufficient impetus. The jump to the floor can be practiced with a very soft floor mat. Both variations, the extended and angled landing position, are very similar to each other during the first part of the jump. The differences only become apparent during the downward movement. So that when the participant is angling the hips, he does not lose that sense of an upward push of the hips in the first part of the jump, both variations can initially be practiced alternately. Once the takeoff from the push-in mat is under control, the mat is inserted from the side. After several secure attempts, the mat is only used on spec. This requires a good eye and reaction from the instructor. The fear of falling backwards is dealt with by setting up the seat drop from behind. First, the participant practices bouncing in the back position. This technique requires a great deal of practice and good stomach muscles. As long as the exercise is not stable, only small jump heights are attained. The danger of injury is very slight. Once the back bouncing is under control, the participant can try to stand up. A soft floor mat can serve as a material aid. But the participant can also jump to the feet without help. Participants soon develop a sense of what it's like to land on the back. Most participants gradually find the courage to jump onto the back. Immediate corrective work must take place to ensure the execution is accurate. Bouncing on the back as a warm-up exercise for the backdrop must function flawlessly. Most beginners allow the lower leg to fall upon landing, which leads to a forward rotation and causes the participant to land more on the pelvis or even in a sitting position. The movement must be intensively practiced, as it can later serve as a technical aid. A backward rotation can be very easily generated by pushing the shoulders back. The participant loses height and lands behind the takeoff point. To avoid this, the instructor issues the command, "Push your stomach up towards the ceiling," or as an overcorrection, jump the backdrop forwards. An effective method is to restrict the landing area by not allowing the participant to take off from the middle of the trampoline bed, but rather with the back closer to the safety mat. The sloping position before the jump has a similar effect to pushing back the shoulders. If the participant jumps forwards during the last straight jump, he finds himself in a backward position and is thrown up by the bed to the back. Even if the feet are only slightly offset forwards, the effects are very clear. The landing is again behind the takeoff point, the loss in height not so pronounced. Because the backdrop is not something that can be viewed as a routine movement, many participants are afraid to let themselves fall on their backs. For this reason, the takeoff is decelerated, resulting in a loss of height. The problem can be solved by a large number of repetitions. Practicing from a standing position can help to intensify the takeoff movement. A beginner is initially unable to estimate how much rotation he requires for a good backdrop. So as not to over-rotate and land on his neck, he usually turns with too little momentum. Instinctively, the hips are bent too early to obtain sufficient rotation for a good landing. Just how much momentum is required is something that must be learned by numerous repetitions of the exercise. Instructors must repeatedly remind participants to carry out a long extension in the first part of the jump. Awareness of this long extension can be generated by practicing the extended back position on a push-in mat. During the learning phase, participants often do not pay attention to their leg posture. This leads to the participant simply letting them fall during landing, thereby preventing a good follow-on jump. Often, a corrective instruction suffices, but sometimes a special exercise to generate awareness of leg posture can be helpful. The participant conducts a backdrop and tries immediately to land on the back a second time. This only works if the legs are held in a vertical position during the first landing on the back. The legs cannot be held up if the participant lands first with the buttocks or the pelvis. A landing of this nature is caused by too little somersault momentum. The pushing up of the hips must be improved. This may require instruction. Many repetitions are necessary. The extended body posture can also be improved here by a backdrop with extended landing on the push-in mat. Through alternating landings in extended and angled back positions, a feeling is developed for the differing amounts of momentum required. Learning the backdrop is inextricably bound up with learning the jump to feet. Learning the basic form of this jump is very easy, but a technically clean execution is not. But a clean technique is very important for jumps that will be mastered later. In the back position, the legs are almost vertical. The arms are parallel to the legs. The head is, according to technique, raised or lying on the trampoline bed. When the bed is pushed down, the hip angle is slightly reduced. At the end of the upwards movement of the bed, the hips are extended. The arms continue to point up towards the ceiling by opening the angle between the body and the arms. The shoulders and back of the head are the last parts of the body to leave the bed. The hips are completely stretched shortly after leaving the bed. The arms are at the same time placed above the head. The head is straight. This initiates a forward rotation. The extension is maintained in this position until shortly before landing, when the knees and hips are bent for landing. The landing is executed with arms straight above the head. The rotation required for the jump to feet is initiated by a powerful swing and stop of the legs from the back position. If there is no swing and stop of the legs, this could be caused by a flawed landing on the back or the wrong timing. Many repetitions are necessary here. If the swing and stop of the legs is too weak, this will also prevent the correct execution of a jump to feet. The error can be corrected by the instruction to perform a powerful push-off with the shoulders, or by practicing gymnastic tipping movements on the floor or other apparatus. If the timing of a swing and stop of the legs is wrong, this can have exactly the opposite effect. If it's initiated too early, the participant rotates too far and over-twists. Falling forwards is not without risk, as landing with the hands on bed can lead to injury. The instruction can be issued here to look over the feet up to the ceiling while landing on the back, and then to push the feet upwards towards the ceiling. A powerful propulsion can be forced by reducing the height of the backdrop jump. This is the case when bouncing on the back. The participant must attain rotation and jump height through the propulsion. With a double back landing, The participant can be forced to hold the legs during the landing on the back. Intensive practice soon pays off. If the previous backdrop has too little rotation, the legs are not vertical on landing, but too flat. They cannot usually be held for sufficient time in this position, and the body is then thrown into a forward rotation. The backdrop must be improved in this case. Uncertainty leads some participants to draw up the legs before the landing. As confidence increases, they can concentrate more on the leg posture, but they must be repeatedly reminded of this until it's automatic. In comparison to the jump to feet from the back, the half twist to feet is easier to perform. Problems regulating the momentum are easier to address. A prerequisite for the jump is a good backdrop and the jump to feet from the back. As the bed is pushed down to its lowest point, the legs are vertical, the arms parallel to the legs. According to technique, the head is raised or lying on the bed. The body posture does not change significantly during the upward movement. The hips are suddenly extended shortly before leaving the bed. The last parts of the body to leave the bed are the shoulders and head, which initiates a forward rotation. The body is completely extended in the climbing phase. The head is straight. The arms are raised vertically above the head. The body straightens up. Body posture is maintained until shortly before landing, when the hips and knees are bent. The variation with arms down at the sides is also widely practiced. Changing the posture of the arms can result in technical errors occurring when learning other jumps at a later stage. The jump is usually mastered in its entirety, but if problems do arise, the twist can be divided up into sections, beginning with an eighth twist, then a quarter twist, then 3/8 of a twist, and finally the half twist. If the hips are not extended, participants often help themselves by allowing themselves to tip over to the side without an extension. This means the landing takes place on the edge of the bed. An early hip extension must be practiced, then viewed from the longitudinal direction. The jump remains in the center of the bed. Learning the jump in sections can be a helpful method here. If the hip extension is too weak or is carried out too late, the momentum will not be sufficient to bring the upper body into the vertical position. This means the participant lands in a forward position after the twist. Improving the jump to feet without a twist generates a greater feeling for the push-off from the back and thereby also helps improve the jump with half twist. In the case of too many somersault rotations caused by an over-powerful but mostly simply too early push-off from the bed, the upper body tips past the vertical position so that after the half twist, the participant lands on his back or even falls backwards. This situation also requires work on regulating momentum with a great number of repetitions. If the half twist is not completed, despite a good hip extension and good momentum regulation, it's usually due to the fact that the twist movement has been initiated too late. The right moment to push one side of the hips over into a twist direction is the push-off from the bed. A feeling for this usually comes after just a few attempts. Many participants try to compensate for their carelessness or incorrect momentum by bending their knees, for example, which is one of the most frequent errors. Participants can get used to the leg extension by way of many repetitions, and the instructor must always be on hand to draw attention to this important posture. Play options. Even though trampolining is a competitive sport with a standardized repertoire of jumps, these can be varied in a vast number of ways. When clapping in time, the legs are moved asymmetrically, which is actually unusual. Any number of random variations and progressions are possible. This is an exercise that's not only fun, it's also a way of consolidating existing jumps. A participant demonstrates a jump that the other one must now repeat exactly. Here, the back drop is first performed in a tuck position and then backwards. The entire trampoline can be utilized. This exercise involves the participant performing a seat drop from the mat into the trampoline bed and jumping back onto the mat in a standing position. The mat is also incorporated when conducting the back drop. Two participants stand opposite each other on the trampoline, the furthest possible distance apart. They carry out reciprocal jumps, whereby one participant demonstrates jumps and the other must imitate these in a rhythm offset by half a jump. Reaction times can be greater during initial attempts. It's also possible to skip on the trampoline. Alone, you can do this using a normal skipping rope. With 3 participants, a long skipping rope around 6 meters long can be used. Seat juggling is best played with 3 participants, but more is also possible. The body weight of participants should be similar. At the start, 2 participants stand on one side of the trampoline bed and the third on the other side. One of the 2 participants on the one side jumps onto the other side into a seated position. The momentum transferred by the jump onto the bed is utilized by the third participant, who undertakes a seat drop forwards. He lands alongside the second participant and the chain reaction continues in this manner. This game does require a little more skill. One of the most popular games is what's known as suitcase packing, or add 1. This involves one participant performing a jump and the next participant copying this jump exactly and adding his own jump. The third participant repeats both jumps and adds one of his own. Long jump formations can result in this manner. This is a playful way of practicing jump combinations, and it's sometimes the case that a combination is tried out for the first time. Intermediary jumps are allowed to make the game a bit easier. The game can be played with or without the rule that eliminates players if they make a mistake. Without a somersault, this exercise can also be taught without further training. The following exercises are only intended for demonstration purposes and require further training. For more information, please consult the menu below under Trampoline Part 2. The straddle back pullover to feet requires competency in executing the backdrop plus a good dose of bravado. Suitcase packing or add one can also be played by with more difficult jumps by experienced trampoline gymnasts. The difficulty level is always tailored to the weakest participant. The seated juggling game can also be varied by using more difficult jumps. The variation seen here is with the 3/4 forward somersault. Combinations. The art of trampolining is not just to learn particularly difficult individual jumps, but also to combine several jumps with each other. Only when each jump is safely completed can a follow-on jump also be conducted safely. An error in a lead jump has grave knock-on effects for the follow-on jump and often even prevents it from being carried out. That's what makes jump combinations so difficult. Trampolining can be practiced as a leisure activity or competitive sport. A 2-jump competition is offered as part of the German Gymnastics Federation competition schedule. This competition allows participants an open interpretation of the predetermined goals, meaning these can be fulfilled in a variety of ways. One example. In the compulsory exercise P1, participants must combine a seated landing and a full twist, in total in 2 jumps. There are 3 ways of doing this. The participant turns a full twist into the sitting position and then jumps into the standing position. The twist can also be divided up between the 2 jumps so that the participant conducts a half twist into the sitting position, followed by a half twist into the standing position. The third option is the most difficult, a seat drop, followed by a full twist into the standing position. If a participant conducts a seat drop, then a jump into the standing position followed by a full twist from the feet, he exceeds the authorized number of jumps with 3 jumps. The P2 exercise requires a half twist more than the P1. The participant conducts a full twist into the sitting position and then a half twist into the standing position. Alternatively, he can conduct a half twist into the sitting position and a full twist into the standing position. It's exceedingly difficult to incorporate the full 1.5 twists into one jump. This is why there are only 2 feasible solutions here. The P3 exercise requires a new kind of landing, the back landing. The most obvious approach is a back drop followed by a jump into the standing position. But many participants find it easier to incorporate another half twist into the final jump. This add-on is permitted. As we've already seen in the P1 exercise, an individual landing style can be combined with twists. The P4 demands a back landing and a full twist in total. There are also 3 possibilities here. The simplest solution is a half twist onto the back, followed by a half twist into the standing position. Participants who are not as confident performing back drops often opt for a back drop without twist and try to incorporate a full twist into the jump into the standing position. The most elegant solution is the full twist onto the back followed by a jump into the standing position. The most widespread competitive form is the individual competition. This involves a series of 10 jumps without intermediary jumps. The compulsory exercise P3 is the easiest 10-part exercise. It comprises basic jumps such as the tuck and straddle, variations on the seat drop and a half twist from the feet. The straight extension jump at the end is not required, but can be carried out. In the compilation of individual 10-part exercises, it's important to remember that getting up after a landing in the seated, front or back position is also appraised as a jump. Accordingly, the combination seat drop, jump into the standing position is appraised as 2 jumps. The participant shows the compulsory exercise P4. At the start of a competitive exercise, the competitor greets the panel of judges. Once the exercise has been completed, regardless of whether it's been successful or not, the competitor then takes his leave of the judging panel. A complete competitive exercise should therefore be conducted in the manner shown here in the compulsory exercise P3. In synchronized trampolining, participants are required to carry out an additional demand. Here, it's not just a question of mastering their own moves, they must also be in tune with their partner. The most important criterion is the simultaneous landing on the trampoline bed. Both participants must adopt a similar rhythm right from the outset. Without a carefully rehearsed takeoff procedure, neither participant knows when the jumping should begin, and the first jump is therefore irregular. One of the participants must adopt a leading role in any starting procedure. The exercise must begin by both partners at the same time. This is not possible without an audible starting signal, and the moves begin at different times. Participants usually count to 3, although the landing is always counted. One of the partners calls out the number 1, and as a signal that he is also ready to begin, the other partner calls out the number 2. If neither participant signals that he wants to abort the exercise, then it begins on the count of 3. The exercise is terminated at the point where one of the partners does not adhere to the agreed series of jumps and carries out a different jump. This is especially evident in jumps incorporating half twists. Even if the difference is just a half twist, the exercise is regarded as finished. Not all participants twist in the same direction. In our case, participants are twisting in the same direction. Differing twist directions are, however, permitted in competition. Just as in individual competition, synchronized competition also requires competitors to greet and take their leave of the judging panel after the exercise. Basic techniques to support the pupil. When the jumps reach a certain difficulty level, trampolining without assistance is no longer a responsible thing to do. These assistance techniques must be learned through specific training. The 5 basic techniques introduced here form the introduction to what is involved when providing assistance. They aim to show just how complex this task is. The assistance is most effective at real intervention and conveying a sense of security if he or she jumps with the participant. Coordination with the participant requires a great deal of practice and assurance from the assistant on the trampoline. The participant is held and guided with a tear-proof belt. Judo belts are especially well suited to this. The other hand is used to influence the body position and jump height by gripping the muscles of the neck so that both participant and assistant always land simultaneously. In view of later assisting grips, the ball of the hand should be placed on the spine. Both assistant and participant must land simultaneously if they're to jump together steadily. Poor synchronization means the assistant is impeding the participant more than helping him. The assistant and participant begin jumping as a build-up to the first jumping attempt with support. The assistant needs to maintain a steady posture to be able to support the participant in all positions. The assistant indicates when the exercise is set to begin by counting to 3. On 3, both parties begin the launch of the jump to be practiced, or the first part of a series of jumps. Counting should always occur as the participant lands. 1, 2, 3. Countering the propulsion of the trampoline bed requires the assistant to land slightly before the participant, thereby stretching the trampoline bed. The assistant avoids being propelled upwards by bending his knees, and the participant is propelled upwards. The tension of the trampoline bed gives the participant additional launch propulsion. The countering must be appropriately dispensed. While the participant is in the air receiving assistance, the assistant must be standing firmly on the bed. In preparation for any supplementary training, the co-jumping and countering can be practiced using either a straight jump or a tuck jump. Countering requires precise timing and coordination with the participant and good timing with regard to leg maneuvers. The technique can also be practiced with a round medicine ball to simulate conditions. If the medicine ball is dropped and not deflected, it almost reaches its initial height. If the deflection occurs too late, the ball is decelerated. If the counter-propulsion takes place at the right moment, the ball gains considerable height. To reduce the participant's reliance on the assistant no longer jumps with the participant, but stands on the frame of the trampoline and moves onto the bed after the initial launch jump. In order that the participant does not experience a bumpy landing, the assistant must ensure that he steps onto the bed in good time to support the participant during landing. The helper can begin stepping onto the bed shortly before the participant leaves it. The assistant's foot can, however, only push the bed down when the participant has already left it. This early intervention is essential for supporting somersault turns. The assistant adopts a firm position as quickly as possible at the point where the participant is expected to land. The assistant supports the participant's upper body even before he lands by placing a hand between the shoulder blades. During landing, the assistant supports the participant's upper body with one arm placed behind him. The other arm completely encircles the stomach to avoid him falling forwards if the landing position is slightly inclined forwards. The assistant stands with his legs relatively wide apart to maintain a secure position and to keep his legs out of the way so as not to impede the participant. In preparation for supplementary training, the entering and catching can be practiced using a straight jump, which, in accordance with real training situations that present themselves at a later date, can also be jumped from the center of the trampoline bed. A push-in mat is used to secure landing without the active intervention of the assistant. It's important that the participant can conduct the jump in its basic form. The mat is pushed beneath the participant after he has left the bed in the event that he performs an unsafe jump. To avoid being propelled painfully against the trampoline, the person pushing the mat should let it go as soon as it's reached its position beneath the gymnast. Coordination of all those involved plays a decisive role here. The coach counts up to 3 landings before the jump is performed. Counting can be omitted if the gymnast is conducting a series of jumps, if the sequence has been discussed beforehand. Reliance on this kind of assistance can be reduced by only deploying the push-in mat if the jump fails. This requires great experience on the part of the assistant and an ability to assess jump quality in good time. This DVD or Blu-ray conveys the basics for safe trampoline use and the methods for simple jumps that can be conducted without assistance. The Trampoline Part 2 conveys the methods for more difficult jumps with a focus on learning assistance methods. The following exercise elements are introduced in Part 2. The backdrop and variations with and without twist. The front drop with and without a half twist. The forward somersault. The forward somersault with half twist, also known as a barani. The backward somersault. The backward somersault into seated position. Please always bear in mind that the Eurotramp education program on DVD or Blu-ray is not a substitute for practical training and must therefore not automatically be seen as evidence that a training program has been undertaken. In addition, please note that each individual country has its own regulations and laws with respect to school sports instruction. Before using a trampoline, please seek advice from the relevant school sports or gymnastics association. This program meets the training guidelines set by the German Gymnastics Association and the National Association of Accident Insurers. In Germany, the National Association of Accident Insurers is responsible for insuring school children during sports instruction. Should you wish to integrate the trampoline into your own instruction program, you should bear the following points in mind. 1. What qualifications do I have to demonstrate to be allowed to give trampoline instruction? 2. Do the trampolines need to be specially certified? 3. In case of an accident, how are the school children insured and what are the insurer's terms with respect to liability in damage claims? Please note that in the event of an accident and if the instructor is not properly qualified, he or she can be held liable. It is quite possible, however, that there are no existing regulations in your country and that this often means no training can be provided. If this is the case, we would be only too happy to hear from you. We are making every effort to make trampolining more popular throughout the world, and as a competent partner in the introduction of trampolining into school sports, we would be keen to help you to do this wherever you happen to be. For further information, please go to www.trampoline-education.com.